Welcome to The Bone, the podcast that goes deeper. Here we cut through the noise and get straight to the core of the issues that matter. From real stories to raw truths, we dive deep into the conversations that shape our world and challenge our thinking. We're not afraid to dig in and get to the marrow of it all. Whether it's life, culture, or business in sports medicine, we're here to break it down raw and real. No filters, no fluff, just to the bone. With your host, Shelby Daly, we're getting to the bone. This is a clinically pressed, approved CEU podcast. Find the quiz to gain credit at clinicallypressed.org/courses. Clinically Pressed Company, making the complicated simple through results that give back. Find out more at clinicallypressed.org. Let's get started.
Welcome back to the Bone. Today we are talking with Government Affairs from NATA, and we're hitting on the subjects of the H2F. Today we have Deanna Kuykendall and Fennell. So Deanna, if you want to introduce yourself and what you do, that would be great.
Absolutely. First of all, Shelby, thank you so much for inviting us on. I'm super excited about this. And I've got a great sidekick here with Karen. I'm Deanna Kuykendall, and I am the Director of Government Affairs here at NATA. So happy to be here today.
And then Karen?
I'm Fennell, and I am currently the chair of the NATA Political Action Committee. And Deanna and I have worked for quite a few years on a variety of different both state issues, federal issues, and now the Political Action Committee in Washington, D.C.
Perfect. Well, Karen, me and you, we've been in talks for a long time. I finally got to meet you at EATA in Philadelphia last year, and we've had some amazing conversations, and you've been a great mentor with some of these subjects I bring up. And then, Deanna, I haven't met you in person yet, but I did reach out to you when I was trying to include Senator Sullivan in Alaska on the H2F stuff to see if, he had any say, especially since he was active military for the longest time. So thank you for all the information and stuff that you sent to me. But today I just wanted to clear the air with some of the H2F stuff, what really happened, where we're going, and what has NATA been doing to help advocate for those athletic trainers in the military setting and what kind of the next steps look like. So could you kind of summarize what happened in the summer 2025? It seemed that there were some messy communication pathways when this whole situation went down.
So if it's okay, I'll actually let Karen start because where I first got involved was I got a very early call from Karen one morning about things that were happening. So Karen, I'll let you.
Well, whenever your phone rings and you think, oh, it's a colleague calling me, I don't know, what are they calling you for? I got a call from the AT program director at K-State University, Dr. Phil Vardaman. And Dr. Vardaman had just gotten off the phone with one of the athletic trainers at Fort Riley in Kansas. And that athletic trainer had just gotten off a call saying that they were eliminating all the athletic trainers. And that was in April of last year. And his first instinct was to call me. And I said, what? It was a stunning phone call because I knew what that meant, meaning hundreds of athletic trainers. And I knew what that meant. I said, Phil, get as much information as you can. Get off the phone with me. Get on the phone with Deanna Kuykendall. And then while he was on the phone with Deanna, I got on the phone with, again, the subject matter experts that we all know and trust who have been, involved with these programs. We took it from there and punted it to Deanna and her team. And Deanna, I'll let you chime in.
Yeah, I think that the first initial step was to try to get our pulse on exactly what was happening. There were things that were put out on social, and so we were hearing that. I was hearing, Karen was hearing things, and so we just really wanted to pull everybody together. And so we put together a town hall. And Shelby, I think you were able to join us with that on that, and that was actually fantastic. I think we probably had 150 plus people that were on that call, and it was just a really good information share of people from all over the country. In different pockets. And so it kind of got us all on the same page. And I'll also say that, so NATA has been working on other military policy issues. And so I had already been earlier in the year, in like a few weeks before that, had already been talking to members of the Armed Services Committee. And so it was just a matter of, hey, remember when I was in there last week? I got something new coming up. And so it was in the initial setting, it was, let's try to get an assessment of what's really happening, what's going down, and why, so that if we could get to the root of why this is happening, then maybe we can address that root and stop it quickly. And so we did that, and then we started, scheduling meetings with the Armed Services Committee to let them know what was happening. And then the other thing that we did, so NATA we use a software that it helps ATs connect with their members of Congress. So if you're signed into the website, you get a link and it already has all your information and ties you directly to who represents you. And so a lot of times we use it for, federal advocacy campaigns, but we also use it a lot on the state side to advocate for state policies. And so we got that fired up and sent it out. And I will say, and I've been at NATA now I'm going into my 8th year. That campaign was overwhelming, and it lit by, spread like fire across the country and was phenomenal. I think by the time the campaign was over, there were 16,000 plus emails that were being sent, which was fantastic, because as I was calling members of the armed services, they were like, yeah, we've heard from you guys on this. And so it was just kind of a collective effort, and really, I think kind of took Congress by storm, because it hit very quickly. And so, yeah.
Yeah. So originally, with the removal of athletic trainers from H2F, there were rumors that they were going to slot in more strength and conditioning coaches. I heard it was a contract that ended. I heard that it was maybe a financial struggle of having money to support that program. Can you talk on that? What was the real decision behind cutting the athletic trainers originally?
I don't know if we can point to one thing specifically, or at least that they've necessarily told us about it. But I do think that what I can say is I think that they've seen the results, and when they really took a hard look, because again, this wasn't a decision and then everybody just went on their merry way. As soon as the decision was made, everyone really came out in opposition. And I think it's important to say that it wasn't just athletic trainers. There were messages that were coming from those active duty military and their families that you guys work with. There were higher ups within that were talking about this. There were other professions that had come out to advocate. NATA works in a lot of different coalitions. And when we sent this out to our membership, we also sent it out to our different coalition groups, who then sent it out to their people as well. So you had a lot of people. This wasn't just a decision that was made and then they moved forward with it. I think they got a lot of pushback. And that made them reevaluate and really look. And it's from what we said, and Karen, you might have your take as well, but when they saw the work that was being done and the numbers and the success that was coming from it, I think obviously the decision was reversed pretty quickly. So, but
yeah, and I would add, when you look at the H2F program, it's kind of an intersection of performance enhancement and healthcare. And one of the things that we uncovered was, obviously, with athletic trainers not being credentialed and privileged as healthcare professionals within the Department of Defense, they looked at us and they weren't sure, were we performance or were we healthcare? And so there were some decisions. I think they were like, oh, well, we don't know where to put these people. Should they even be here? But then when you look at the data and you look at the results of what we bring to the H2F program, I think they kind of stepped back and said, oh, well, we can't just unilaterally just go and do this. Especially when you look at all of the components of H2F and where we fit, we intersect with a lot of those components, not just the injury prevention side, not just the performance, the lethality, and all of the other terms that they use of operational readiness. But we also have this rehabilitation component. We have the sleep component. We have the nutritional component. So we're integrated in a lot of these areas. But, as we trying to uncover the one single issue, we really couldn't nail it down to one thing. We just think that there was just some decisions that were made, whatever those decision makers, whatever their reasoning was. But more importantly, through advocacy efforts, we were able to get their attention and to get them to realize, hey, this is a poor decision. And typically, once a decision's made in the armed forces, they don't typically go back. So there's something to be said there that they looked at it from a different lens. And also, I think dealing with the armed forces it's just like in Washington, D.C., that with a new election comes in a new administration. And in the armed forces, these folks are rotating or transitioning out to other installations. So every 2 or 3 years, they might be sent to another installation. And so when you have that turnover component to a lot of these decisions, when you have the new guy on the block or the new gal on the block that comes in, there might be some uptraining or some understanding issues that need to be placed to understand really what's the issue and who made this decision. But luckily we were able to, through those advocacy efforts, to get them to relook at it.
Every season begins with hope. A team pushing through the heat, chasing something bigger than themselves. But when temperatures spike, even elite athletes can cross from pushing too hard to heat emergency in minutes. And once core temperature rises above 104 degrees, the clock is ticking. That's why athletic programs rely on immersion cooling equipment, the ICE personal cooling system from First Line Technology. ICE delivers full-body water immersion, the medically proven gold standard for treating exertional heat stroke. Its insulated, waterproof design maintains optimal cooling temperatures between 35 and 59 degrees Fahrenheit, even in extreme conditions. With capacity for up to 6 athletes at once, ICE rapidly reduces core temperatures by an average of 1.8 degrees every 3 to 10 minutes, fast enough to prevent cellular damage and protect vital organs. It deploys in under a minute, drains quickly, and collapses for transport, ready for sidelines, tournaments, and away games. Built from rugged, puncture-resistant materials and trusted by sports medicine teams nationwide. Because every athlete deserves to go home safe. No game is worth losing a life. And because heat stroke is 100% survivable if you cool first, you transport second. Protect your team. Protect your season. Choose immersion cooling equipment rapid relief when it matters most. Learn more at firstlinetech.com.
So with the structure of the military, we have the Military Athletic Training Association. I guess how does the military speak with the athletic trainers? How did the athletic trainers get into the military setting? I know that they're contracted through companies. Are the companies really the ones doing the most advocating because it's a business, or is there somebody else in the military that's, educating, advocating, getting the information, the data points to the proper people? Do you guys know how that kind of works?
I mean, I think so. Athletic trainers have been in the setting for a long time, as you know, and I think that really the work that you guys have done in that space, in the results that they've seen, have made them want to hire more and more athletic trainers over the years. Again, I think in this particular case, this was more of an administrative decision. Again, just my opinion on that piece of it. But the work that you guys have done has been a testament to why they continue to add athletic trainers into that space and the successes that they're seeing in that. And I think that advocacy in those, I mean, it happens on a grand scale, like with us on the national level and in the work that we do, at Capitol Hill or in the state legislatures on the, with your local military branches. But I think that there's also on the ground and the work that you guys do speak for that as well. So yeah, they're very familiar with you guys and what you do.
And some of our colleagues are entering their third decade, working with the armed forces. And the hard part with anything, whether it's your state government, your local government, your state government, or the federal government, is there are a lot of moving parts. And there's a lot, and when you look just from the Department of Defense, the Department of War, whichever term you want to use, it's a big entity. And then beyond that, then you have the different branches. And what one branch does, you think, well, let's just use the gold standard from whatever branch. We're going to use it across all the branches. Well, not so fast, because the Air Force might do something completely different than the Army, and the Army is going to do different, from the Navy. And so looking at from that standpoint, it's a much bigger system, and getting that recognition across all the branches would certainly help not just the athletic trainers in the Navy and the athletic trainers in the Air Force, but really help this issue, because then it gives us standing, if you will, within all of the branches of the military. And I won't even go down the road talking about the National Guard and the reserves and those branches as well, and the Space Force. And so when you start looking at all of these different entities, they all have their own reporting structure and they have their own way of doing things. And then you've got that overreaching umbrella of the Department of Defense, Department of War. So it's a big entity and it's a lot to navigate.
So this, was quite a talking topic throughout the summer of 2025. I think there was a lot of advocacy, a lot of joint effort. I think athletic trainers in general really supported this setting in an amazing way. And the people that came out of the bushes and the trees, I mean, I didn't realize that people were so passionate about protecting our other settings, which was amazing. Once you guys got involved, what were the steps that you guys took at the government level to educate or notify certain people in positions about this change and why it was important to keep athletic trainers in the military setting?
So I'll say sometimes in a very different way, but a lot of times your government affairs department in an ATA, half of what we do is almost kind of like an emergency action plan that you guys have on with, you hope that you never have to deploy. You have to plan for it. You have to have a foundation. You have to have things in place. But if something does happen, you can immediately execute and move on it. But again, you hope that everything is, rainbows and butterflies. Unfortunately, that's always the case. And so with this, I mean, one being having the infrastructure in place to be able to execute an advocacy campaign as quickly and to mobilize and to pull people together. You have folks a lot of times, what does an ATA do for me, or why do I want to be a part of that? It's really a network, and it's a family. I mean, it's a family, and you take a lot from that. But if that network and doesn't exist, and that connection, and you can't, within a few hours host a town hall or send out an advocacy campaign or have people who already have the relationships within these congressional offices, because we're out there knocking on doors all the time. If you don't have that or you lose that, then you really, it hurts your opportunities to truly advocate. So I think that having those things in place and being able to move really helped. It really helped with that initiative. So again, it's understanding what the issue is. It's being able to having the right people in the right areas at the right time that could talk to the people that needed to be talked to make changes. To say that this was a huge effort from a lot of people is really an understatement. We had people from all different corners that were working on this. And even afterwards, I mean, this was just, yes, when the decision changes, absolutely, but the advocacy is never going to stop and it's never going to change, because we want to continue to push. And it's not just even in this setting, but across all settings, because those job opportunities are so critical. But this also gives us an opportunity and a platform, if you will, to speak from and to really highlight. So when this happened, this also gave us an opportunity to really highlight all of the great work that you guys are doing across the board. So yeah, it's that process. It's having those things in place that you can execute. So from the town halls, and then from the advocacy campaigns we have DC people who are headquartered in DC. We pulled them in. You had people at the different installations that, we pulled in. Karen, I mean, we often laugh that, with Thelma and Louise, Karen and I were on the phone sometimes at 6 o'clock in the morning and 9 o'clock at night, and, working in multiple different time zones and things. It was just a full effort from so many people. And if I can say this too, so at NATA, my department, the Government Affairs Department, is a smaller department. We're many but mighty, but the support that we receive to do what we do from teams all over the country. I mean, I love y'all, but that was humbling to see how many people, the phone calls and the texts and the emails that I got. What can I do to help? What can I do to help? What can I do to help? It was really incredible. Again, a testament to you guys and who you are, just as wonderful humans, but really just the network and the family. That's part of it.
And I'll parlay off of that. I want to give some shout outs to some of our members because, as Deanna mentioned, a lot of phone calls, a lot of emails, a lot of text messages. My husband is, or my wife, or my neighbor is. So our members got out there and shook the trees and helped us make some connections. We have a member who said, I'm going to call in a favor because a buddy of mine is a general and he's a former commanding officer at such and such installation, and he's now at the Pentagon. And I'm going to call in a favor, and I'm going to have him call General Mingus at the U.S. Army, and who was integrally involved in the formation of H, but also was kind of the point person when it came to this program. So to have one of our members say, I know a general. I've never met a general. I'm just going to say that it's very intimidating, right? And for that member to say, I'm going to call my buddy, that's huge. But also looking at our existing network and putting the pieces of the puzzle together, because what was said on social media might or might not be true. What people are hearing that work in the Pentagon, what are people hearing that work in the H2F? It's just getting all of those pieces together, trying to take everything with a grain of salt and make sure that the information is correct. Because we certainly didn't want to be repeating information that was wrong, because that could certainly hamper our efforts. And then I also think I've got to stop saying this because of the H2F issue, boots on the ground, right? That we got a team of people, we got a team of athlete trainers. We got in the car, we got on a train, whatever it took, and a bunch of us went to DC and walked the halls with Deanna. And we're talking right after those 16,000 emails went out, we hit the halls and we went to these offices. And I also want to give a shout out to our governmental affairs, our lobbying team, our governmental affairs extension, Washington, DC. I don't think the typical member knows how many lobbyists that we have working on our behalf, but more importantly, they have subject matter experts within their lobbying group. So if there's a particular issue that comes, about, our lobbyists will pull in somebody from our lobbying group. And I think that that's important for our members to understand, that it's just, some guy or gal that we pay a bunch of money to walk the halls in DC. These folks have expertise in very specific lanes. But to get athlete trainers in DC and to walking the halls and having these conversations directly with these offices was critical. The first day, I'm a realist, so I was the first day I was like, I don't think we're getting a lot of traction here. Then the meetings we had on the first day, those staff members then went and talked with the other staff members within the armed services community. And the conversations the second day, it was night and day. They knew who we were. They had done their homework. They came prepared, and they were extremely engaging. And they're like, okay, what can we do to help? It was really encouraging for me, because that first day I was like, 16,000 emails. But that second day, night and day, it was tremendous. And then to be able to build off of those conversations.
And what I love that Congress does is that they have fellows in their office. So they're active duty military that are lent to Congress for a year for a time. So the people that we're talking to are not just their policy people, but they're active duty military. And a lot of those were, and for ATs who work, with folks in the military, they are very much a tight knit family. And so as we were talking to these fellows, they have worked with athletic trainers. And so they were very familiar with you guys. And I say this, and this is why I know several of our members will, I sound sometimes like a broken record. The importance of inviting a member, a legislator, to come out and see your workplace and see firsthand what you do. I can talk all day about it, at the Capitol, but for them to see firsthand and, see the work you do or talk to the people that you work with, that's more powerful than anything. Often in my background, I used to work for a member of Congress, and I used to say, the sweet woman that opens the door for him, at the local Route 66 diner is a more powerful lobbyist than, the fancy group in DC, because their home, it's personal and they see them firsthand. And so, being able to have those conversations is critical. So when you have these policy experts who have experience with an athletic trainer and know the depth and the breadth of what you do, makes the conversation very different. So, and that's super helpful.
I don't know if we'd have this big of impact in another setting necessarily, but if this was happen again, are there ways to prevent it, or is it basically the same EAP that we employed recently with the military setting? How do we get more involved? Obviously inviting government employees or, people that have status to your athletic training room where you work. Are there other ways to really educate or get the word out there about athletic trainers?
So we at NATA, we're constantly knocking. I'm in DC all the time. We work really closely with state associations on state legislation. What's really important is to continue to be engaged on if there's a healthcare issue that at all remotely touches the profession, it's important to engage on those conversations. So you'll see a lot of state legislatures are taking action on, on AED bills, sudden cardiac arrest. And we're part of a lot of those coalitions. We had some on EpiPens, Narcan, mental health. As these issues come up, it's really important that athletic trainers are engaged in those. We try to do that on the national side, but you guys as well, because it's helping educate on your expertise. If there's a healthcare policy decision that's being made, then healthcare providers need to be part of that, have a seat at the table, and they want to hear from you. And so to your question, Shelby, there will always be things that will pop up that we will have to combat. It's like an insurance policy. You hope you never have to use it, but you want to make sure you have it. And you have to be prepared, and you hope that you've laid the foundation that if something does happen, you can really quickly mobilize and activate on that side. But yeah, there is a lot of proactive activity that happens out there. If I'll use an example, I was in DC last week, and there were a couple of concussion bills, and they were concussion in the public safety space. And so I went in there to talk to them about you guys, what you do, how you handle it. Beforehand, I talked to our public safety ATs to get their inside track. I said, is there anything that I need to be communicating for you guys on this? So that open dialogue and open communication between those of you who are, as Karen says, are the boots on the ground and truly have that expertise so that I can make sure to communicate that. But so there's that proactive side. But yeah, it's a balance. I would love to say that there's not going to ever be an emergency again, but I would hope that the work that is being done, that if something does happen, that we can quickly mobilize and combat it.
Yeah. Karen, did you have any ideas or thoughts?
When I look at all the different practice settings, every single one of them, there is something going on at the federal and state level that affects every single athletic trainer. And a lot of times we get in our little silos about, the four walls, ceiling, and floor where I work, or my practice setting. If you look at, there are things that we're following and that we are engaged in that affects every athletic trainer. And I think it's helping us stay aware of trends or things that people hear, or more importantly, things that potentially could affect our profession, whether it's one athletic trainer or 1,000 or 10,000. So, being the eyes and ears of what you're hearing is vital. And looking, especially when we start looking at the public health sector and some of these other intersections that we have, it's just vital for our members to be able to come back to us and say, hey, this is what I've heard. I don't know if it's true or not, but just, we would rather hear something and then be able to either confirm or deny, right? But more importantly, be prepared. And when the shoe drops, we want to be able to say, we had heard rumblings about this. We'd rather know ahead of time versus in a reactive state of mind. And I think also being a proactive association is going to help us in the future as well, instead of reactive.
And I think that there's also, where you guys are concerned, you guys have full-time jobs that you're balancing, whereas my full-time job is to be that voice, is to look. And so and I get these calls all the time, these texts all the time. Hey, I'm hearing something, or can you look at something, or can you ping somebody about this to see if you, and that's what I'm here for. I mean, yeah, you'll have these monumental efforts and these, fancy, but then I get questions, hey, I need a resource to help with this, or I need to know if this falls within, my practice act, or how will this impact, and connecting those. So we do large and small, but to Karen's point, we have to hear those things. Those things will bubble up in here. And then again, it's my job to run traps on those to see, is this policy issues? Is this way more that needs to be, what do we need to do on all of this?
So when people have about these rumblings and stuff, is it best to email you? Not everybody has your cell phone number, but what is the best way to get in contact to flag it or have a conversation about it to know if it's a new thing or if it's already being addressed?
Yeah, I would always say, Era, that I don't care if I've heard about it 100 times. If you hear something, call me or text me or email me. They all come to my phone. And Karen knows this. I don't sleep a lot. So especially this time of year when all the states are back in session and Congress is moving and that kind of stuff. But yeah, and even if something is just sounds off or sounds weird, or if you have a question about it, you just never know. But again, if we don't know about it and we don't hear about it, then we don't know to necessarily to go after it. And I'll tell you, total side note, Shelby, total plug for you. The information that you put out on your LinkedIn page is incredible. I mean, you are a wealth of knowledge and information, and it takes people like you that continue to put information out there that we can work with. And I can't work in a vacuum. I have to be able to get information that I can dispense out.
Athletic trainers, you've got a plan for everything. But when seconds count, is your emergency action plan as ready as you are? Meet Easy EAP, the digital emergency action plan app built specifically for athletics. Easy EAP puts your EAPs right at your fingertips on your phone, tablet, or laptop, so you can act fast, stay compliant, and keep your athletes safe. Update protocols in real time, share with staff instantly, send mass alerts, and carry every venue's plan in your pocket. No more binders, no more digging. It's time to modernize your emergency prep. Visit easyeap.com and be ready for anything. Easy EAP, your plan when it matters most. If you're an athletic trainer who's ever scrolled a job board and thought, I wish I didn't have to sift through all these personal trainer and physical education teacher jobs just to find real athletic training roles, you're not alone. Athletic Trainer Finder was built by an AT for ATs to fix what's broken in the job market. Every week, they track athletic training jobs from across the country and spotlight the roles that actually respect the profession, the ones with clear pay, realistic expectations, and strong settings. They don't pretend the market is perfect. They show you what's out there and call out what's worth your time. The mission is simple: make the athletic training job market more transparent, more honest, and more fair. Whether you're burned out, curious, or ready for your next move, Athletic Trainer Finder puts the power back in your hands. Visit atcfinder.com and create your free account to see this week's jobs. That's atcfinder.com, so you can find what the market really offers.
Yeah, that's kind of why I started talking about it, because it's like, well, everybody's talking about it in the background, but nobody's actually addressing it and having a professional conversation about it. And I think that's what's kind of holding us back as a profession, is having the platforms to be able to talk about it, explore it, debate it, whatever you want to do with it. But I don't know how we're supposed to come up with solutions if nobody addresses it formally. And I know the NATA is starting to come out and talk a little bit more about stuff and publishing, but they also have some restrictions, I think, on being able to approach things and, specifically talk to people. I think they have to do some broad strokes, which is really hard. And I think that's what's hard from the athletic training perspective also. So I think, having these conversations on the podcast, being able to explore the different layers, because everything's way more complicated than a little LinkedIn post, but it's, trying to help bridge those gaps of where athletic trainers feel really distant from the profession. And I really hate to see people leave, because athletic trainers are pretty cool and amazing. So, and I think we're doing something really meaningful to the public wherever you're at, and it'd be sad to see it dwindle or disappear. So thanks for bringing that up. It feels good that people are acknowledging that I'm trying to get it out there.
It's phenomenal. And I know Karen would agree with me on that. A lot of the information that you got, it's incredible. And here's what I will say. What I try to do is to do listening sessions with different settings of ATs, because there are some that are very common threads that you all experience in no matter what setting you are. But I can tell you, having met with some of our industrial ATs or our ATs that are working in construction, some of their concerns and needs were different than I talked to some performing arts ATs yesterday that are in the dance space. And so, yes, there are some of those common threads, but it's also understanding the individual. And then I'll also say this too: advocacy isn't just walking the halls of Congress or advocating in the state legislature. It could be advocating with state agencies all the time, but also different institutions or organizations, different groups. We had an AT that reached out about getting recognition within the Equestrian Foundation, that we have ATs that are working in that space, and but they're not formally recognized. So what can we do there? And so we were able to reach out and we're still working on the issue. We're not over. But so advocacy can look in a lot of different. But again, that came from Austin Devlin reaching out to Karen and to me and to Andy over COPA and saying, hey, we're having some of these issues. Can you look into this? And so there's going to be some of those narrow issues that we're just not going to know about unless it bubbles up. But then we're all over it once we know it's there.
Yeah, and I think it is about our members bringing questions forward or issues. Here are some barriers that I'm experiencing, whether that's with my employer, whether that is with my setting, whether it's big or small. If we don't know what the issues are, we can't either, number one, understand it, and then number two, hopefully provide the resources with which to help that AT. And so there are the keyboard warriors that pink, 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 right? And they get on there and they complain. But my response to them usually are, well, what steps have you taken to engage the leadership at your state, your district, your national level, or the leadership in your town, the leadership in your school, the leadership within your department? I try to, I want to understand an issue. I want to understand what's at the root cause, so that hopefully then we can then connect them with the right subject matter experts to provide the resources that they need. And so social media can be a blessing and can be a curse, but at the same time, it allows us to better understand maybe what our colleagues are going through, and also encouraging our colleagues to pick up the phone and ask. And whether that is calling the NATA office or whether that is calling their state president, their district director, whoever it is, help us get the information so that we can be much more nimble and maybe connect people with the right people in order to help.
And Shelby, you had asked this earlier. Well, people might not have my personal phone number right now. If you call, so my office number is on the NATA website, but if they call me, usually I give people my cell number. So I am happy to give it. And part of that is, I mean, even the constructive criticism is good, as far as I'm concerned, is good, because it's just a way to make it better. I mean, I would love if in the government affairs world, if everything was perfect. As long as you're dealing with Congress, it's never going to be that way. But so if there's people that feel like that I'm not addressing their needs, I just want to hear from them, because I want to be reflective of what their needs and what their concerns are. It's one thing for me to think what the issues are and try to run with that, but it's different when I actually hear from you guys. And I learned that from, again, one of my old bosses. He was military and then went into Congress, and they always said, the worst thing is when DC is trying to run what's happening on the ground, and it's like it's the ground that needs to tell DC what needs to change. And I've always thought about that, like it's you guys who have to tell us what we need to be working on for you, as opposed to me telling you what's important to you.
Yeah, well, and that's, I think, a lot of athletic trainers assume that the problem is being addressed because a lot of people are experiencing it. But if you never actually flag it of, yeah, this is important to me, I need to talk to somebody that can do something about it, it's never going to get done. Because I'm sure, I mean, I saw your office. You have a lot of things going on. So a priority to somebody may not be a priority to you at that moment, because you're putting out other fires or have other initiatives that you're doing. So if nobody actually brings it to your front of mind, and it's just being talked about around you, it's never going to get addressed. And I think that's where some of the distance is happening, probably from our professional organization and athletic trainers, is they think it's already in motion when nobody's actually addressed it and made it an actual topic of discussion. Having that relationship with your professional organizations at the national or the state level is very important. And I think we have to get rid of feeling like we're nagging, or, we keep bringing up the same subjects, but if it hasn't changed, obviously it hasn't been properly addressed. So it's keeping involved at those organizational levels to make sure it's getting pushed along, or coming up with solutions, whatever it may be. And I think athletic trainers have taken a back seat on some of those issues, and that's maybe where some of the division is actually happening. I don't know. I haven't figured out that question or that answer yet, but these are why I want these conversations, is to kind of bring it together.
Yeah, and sometimes and I think this is just in general. I've always been, again, I tend to be a little bit old school, where I'll pick up the phone. I mean, Karen knows this all the time. I pick up the phone all the time, as opposed to sending a text or shooting somebody an email, because I feel like there's so much more that can happen in a phone call versus the other. And I think part of that is, one, getting to know the people who work at NATA. And I'm going to say I'm totally biased with this, but I have really awesome colleagues who want to help. And if they know what the issue, they want to help with that. So it's getting to know the people at the office and having that relationship and reaching out. And there were things that come across my desk, and I know with my colleagues this happens too, where it might not be something that I handle, but because somebody knows me, because they've worked with me through GAC or, one of the other committees or whatever, they'll ping me on it. I'm happy to get them to where they need. So I think it's not being afraid to just reach out if something pops up, or and express that opinion, or share it, or make a call, or send a text. Or Karen gets a lot of stuff that comes to her because she's out there a lot, and Karen will ping one of us at the national office to see. But I look at it, we're all in this together, and we're all working towards this, to trying to move the profession forward. So we're a lot stronger as a united front. And I think H2F showed that when we were all rowing in the same direction, we were all fighting the cause together, and look what we were able to accomplish.
And the transparency of what the NATA is doing, it's on the NATA website. And Deanna, I want to let you talk about some of the things that you've, instituted now to help us understand what's being done, what we're doing, whether that's at the state level or at the national level. So Deanna, just talk a little bit about some of the things that you've been able to put in place.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've started the NATA Beat. So it started as a quarterly newsletter. It still goes out, but it's been somewhat expanded, if you will. So we now have my NATA Beat, which is on X, and that is a way that we can communicate real time and getting information out. So that members know when we're on Capitol Hill, or they know we do legislative boot camps with state associations. So they know when we're out in the states and working on that. They know if there's bills that are coming up. If states are working on bills and they're putting information out, we share it on our platform. So it's just and I'll say it's so when you're in government affairs, you kind of put your head down and you get the work done and you forget that you've got to communicate, what have I been working on? And so sometimes you kind of have to come out of your bubble and you have to say, okay, look, here's the thing. And sometimes it is not, we were able to, sometimes the success wasn't, we passed a bill or, we moved this forward. Sometimes it was, we kept the sky from falling today, and tomorrow we're going to do it again, especially when it's just an interesting time, which I think everybody always says that it's an interesting time in politics and government and all the things. But definitely it gets even more political when you're at this time in the election process, because you've got the midterms coming up and then you'll have the general after that. So it just becomes, and when it's more political, policy is a little bit different and the dynamic is a little bit different. But anyway, all that's to say, we're doing this. So I'm trying to, and I put that full onus on me. I'm trying to more communicate, what we're doing externally. So you're going to see the bills that we've endorsed. Those are on the website. The bills that we have endorsed that we've been meeting with legislators on, there's a way for athletic trainers to individually and personally advocate on that. And then just reporting real time about what we're doing. We've started a new series, NATA Chat. Our first one will be this evening, where it's literally, if I wanted to, it's all things government affairs, because a lot of times this is a really complicated space and there's a lot of movement, especially we've got compacts, we've got Practice Act updates, you've got student loan reimbursements, you've got stipends, you've got all these things that are happening right now. And so if we can get everybody in the same room together and have a conversation and share, there's no need to reinvent the wheel. Let's share resources, let's share ideas, policies, and stuff. So we're starting that. It's as Karen mentioned, it is, the work has been done, but sometimes you just have to be able to communicate all the things that are happening. And I have an amazing team that I get to work with between Madison Sequenzia and Nick Tollfree. All of us come from legislative offices, so that's kind of our background. And we're like ducks in a pond where we're swimming really fast, but you might not see it on top. So we're trying. And sometimes I'll get a call and say, hey, what were you doing? Or what were you? And try to communicate that. So if there's a lack of that, what have you been doing? I'm just trying to get the information out.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I know that you guys do a lot of work. It's just, one of those things of, well, what are they doing and how is this going to affect me? Or, what progress have we made, I think is the biggest thing. So I appreciate everything that you're doing and realize that I don't think you guys get enough credit, you and Karen, for all the work that you've put in for the profession. I do wish there was an easier way to highlight it, because it's always emotions, so it's hard to update on every single step that you guys are doing.
Well, and I can say that when I first came to NATA back in 20, and this is just to show how far the profession has come. I can remember, so I came in 2018 and I was really working on the state government affairs side. But we still had several states that didn't have licensure yet, or old practice acts that hadn't been updated in 20, 30 years. And and in a few, 5, 6, 7 years, we are literally, working on compact legislation. And we have, there's regulation in every state. Athletic training is formally recognized in every state. In DC, I think that's huge. And at a time, I say, the legislature tends to be a slow-moving glacier. They're going to get to it, but it's going to take a really, really long time because it just moves so slowly. to see that when you truly take a step back and see the distance that has happened just in the small snapshot of the last 5 or 6 years, but even beyond the profession specifically, but the areas of public policy that the profession touches, to see the monumental changes, attention and changes that have come from that. When you're focused on very narrow things, it's kind of hard to see some of that. But if you take a step back and you really see the big picture, I mean, we still have a lot to go. Don't get me wrong. I think we have a huge path to grow, and that's great. That's what we do. But to really see the changes that have been made, I think it's been pretty cool. And Karen can tell you she was part of some of those big changes back in when Missouri was updating their Practice Act. So.
Yeah, I'm a former state leader still in recovery. And I joke about that because, it takes a team. And what I enjoyed the most being a state president was obviously we were trying to update our Practice Act and we had to get our house in order. And so, Deanna and her team came in to our state, helped us get our act together, helped us formulate a plan. We executed the plan. We were able to update a 30-year-old Practice Act from 1983. And more importantly, when we had our hearing, I had left the Capitol building and I was going to head over to go check in at my hotel, drop off my bag and go grab something to eat. And my phone rang and I didn't recognize the number. I thought, oh, it must be a spam call. Well, as I was sitting after I sat down at a restaurant to have dinner, it was Deanna calling me. She and her team had been listening, to the testimony. And so knowing that you have people in Carrollton, Texas, on your side, that's really, it's really a testament to what the NATA brings. But not just coming in and helping us get organized and thinking about things from a legislative standpoint. We're just a bunch of athletic trainers just trying to do the right thing, trying to, put the wheels in motion to update our Practice Act. And so to have their expertise is second to none. And I think also a lot of times when we're looking at this through this governmental affairs lens, it's the chicken or the egg, which comes first. And so we're kind of getting our house in order, if you will, with this recognition in all 50 states plus District of Columbia, but also tracking all of these bills at the state level is helping us at the national level. And when you start talking about AED bills and the HEARTS Act from 2024, concussion bills, now we're talking about public safety concussion. And so they're really looking to us as the subject matter experts. And so we've laid this really good foundation with which to build upon. And so, there's local, there's state, and then there's federal, and we're laying groundwork in all three of those areas. And it doesn't matter how we get there, whether it's the chicken or the egg. It doesn't really matter. It's just that, as Deanna has mentioned before, is we all get in the boat and we row forward together with a plan and a route, and knowing that we're going to have these seas of wind and rain and typhoons and hurricanes, but we at least have a plan and we're ready to tackle it.
So I have to share a really quick story because it was just kind of cool how this was happening. Technology has come a long way, and because all of the hearings and the floor proceedings in the state legislature, it's all broadcast, so we can see it. So as Karen mentioned, we usually watch it. If there's a committee hearing, we watch it. So we'll work with the states ahead of time. If they need one pagers or talking points or whatever, we can help with all of that. But we also have some pretty sophisticated research technology on our end. And I can remember there was one night, and then the legislature never likes to move big stuff during normal business hours between 8 and 5. They like to do things at 10 o'clock at night. But we had an AT who was in state government affairs AT, who was on the ground, and their bill was up on the floor, and we've been waiting all day for the bill to come up. And at this point, it's well into the evening, and we're just kind of watching, but I'm on standby in case, because we knew that there were going to be things happening on the floor and questions that were going to pop up on the floor. And so we just wanted to all be prepared in case a question got asked that they needed resources. But I can remember that night, it was all hands on deck, and they were asking questions. We were bouncing stuff back and forth, but literally we're relaying, research and background and information, because they had questions like, what other states are working on this? What other states have implemented this? And so we're feeding that to them, and they're feeding it to the legislators on the floor and back and forth. So it was kind of like just a really cool, like, it almost felt like a football game. We're in the booth and we're calling play, that kind of stuff on the field. So, but all of that comes from just having, I say this, and again, it's my shameless plug. It's having that relationship to be able to work together on those things. That's how we move the needle.
Well, that was an awesome conversation to learn more about what's going on at the government level. Was there anything else you wanted to fit in before we start rolling it up?
No, I'm excited thanks for letting us come on and talk.
Yeah. Definitely.
I have to do a shameless plug. I think people when you look at, an opportunity, you never want to waste an opportunity. I've been a longtime supporter of the NATA Political Action Committee. And when you say PACs and you say stuff in DC, it seems icky and it seems like we're never going to be able to move the needle and we're not going to be able to make a splash or make an impact. And I always encourage people, if they ever have a question, pick up the phone and call me, or you can get my email off the NATA website and I'll set up a phone call and just share some of my experiences with NATAPAC and some of the things that we've been able to do. We have a district representative and we have a district director on our NATAPAC advisory board. So each district has a member on the NATAPAC advisory board. And so people can call up maybe somebody they know and say, hey, I have questions about what things are happening in DC, or legislators that we're supporting financially and the why. And also, I think having an opportunity to get out there on podcasts, and whether it's educational sessions or whatever it is, so we can educate our members of what NATAPAC does. Yes, we make financial contributions to folks who are running for Senate or running for the House of Representatives, but it's a methodical process. It's not just, I like this guy or this gal, so we're going to give them money. It's a methodical, well thought out process, and we're transparent of how it happens. But I think also people think, listen, I'm stretched between high cost of utilities and rent and student loans and all these other things. You don't necessarily have to give money. Sometimes it's sweat equity, helping at state level, helping at the district level, coming to Hit the Hill in Washington, D.C., which is coming up March 30th and 1st. It doesn't have to be necessarily about, contributing to NATAPAC with your dollars. But if you are able to contribute, great. Whether it's $1 or it's $5, $500. But being able to understand what the money is going towards and how we work, we're an open book. So please, reach out to your district director that's on the advisory board for NATAPAC.
Awesome. Yeah, I keep trying to push people to get involved at the local, state, and national level if they really want to see change in athletic training. Obviously, it's easier at the local level sometimes, but, that helps in the upstream of at the national level by getting involved at the local level. So that's how we move the profession forward. But I want to thank you guys so much for coming on. This took a lot of time to coordinate, but you guys are very busy people, and I understand that. So I really appreciate you guys both coming on and talking to me about what all you're doing.
Thank you, Shelby, and thank you for all you do. So you're definitely moving the needle forward. So we need people like you to really keep up the dialogue.
Thank you.
I appreciate the opportunity. It's been great. Thank you, Shelby.
Yep.
That's it for today's episode of To the Bone. I hope we've sparked some new thoughts, challenged your perspectives, or simply reminded you to dig a little deeper. Remember, life isn't just about what's on the surface. Sometimes you've got to cut deeper and get to the bone of what really matters. To the Bone podcast is a product of Daly LLC. It's hosted and produced by Shelby Daly, ATC, and Randy Daly. No clinical decision-making should be based solely on one source. While care is taken to ensure accuracy, factual errors can be present. For more on the show, visit www.tothebonepodcast.com. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Get involved in the conversation. You can find us at www.tothebonepodcast.com. Drop us topic suggestions or be a potential guest. We're all about connecting with you, our listeners. Until next time, stay curious, stay grounded, and keep cutting deep.